know what you want to know. So as we go along, the team is going to be sharing a lot of content. Feel free to just throw your questions in the chat, and we will make sure we get to as many of those as we can during the Q&A portion of today. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Vice President of the Red Line Extension, Tanisha Marshall.
Next slide, please. So good afternoon, everyone. First off, I would like to thank the Employment Engagement Team for asking us to come and share about this exciting work that we're doing around RLE, how we got here, and what is to come. My name is Tanisha Marshall, and I am the Vice President of RLE here at CTA, and I've asked several of my team members to participate, as this is an enormous project, and it takes a collective group to manage the variety of components to make this a success. So, we started off with the intro of music. We're going to do something a little bit different here on this behind the scenes. We're going to do, if you're familiar with DJ Cassidy, we're going to pass the mic to all of the different team members. So after I provide an overview, I will pass the mic to Ms. Sonali Tandon, who's our Senior Project Consultant. After Sonali, I'll pass the mic to Ms. Claire McGuire, our Senior Project Manager for Controls. Then after Claire, I'll pass the mic to Ms. Michelle Palmer, one of our RLE project managers who will be joining us from within the project footprint. And then after Michelle, I'll pass the mic to Mr. Mohammed Basadi, one of our RLE general managers. And then finally, after Mohammed, I'll pass the mic to Ms. Latrice Phillips-Brown, our Director of Community Relations for RLE. Unfortunately, she had an emergency, so she won't be here today. And also Ms. Tammy Chase, our Director of Communications for RLE and RPM, will also be joining us from our community office in the footprint. Next slide, please. So the Red Line Extension will be one of the most critical and transformative equity investments in CTA's history. We will extend the Red Line and provide rail service for the first time to the far south side of Chicago. This $5.3 billion transit equity project will provide faster connections from the far south side to the rest of the city, while also serving as an economic catalyst to one of the most disinvested parts of Chicago. We will design and construct the transit extension from its current terminal at 95th along the Dan Ryan, all the way to 130th near the historic Altgale Gardens. Why do I call it historic? It's one of the first public housing developments ever built in the United States. This 5.6-mile heavy rail extension will include 4 new fully accessible stations with multimodal connections that include bus, bike, pedestrian, and park and ride facilities. The extension will be elevated from 95th to 119th, and then it'll start to descend at grade from 119th to 130th. We'll also have a modern and efficient railcar storage yard and maintenance facility at 120th to support this extension. Outside of construction, it will be an unprecedented economic development opportunity and provide connection to jobs, education, and commerce. Next slide. So just some of the benefits: improving the transit experience. RLE provides a new and more direct connection to the Red Line. This means an easier trip and less time commuting. RLE will provide up to a 30-minute time savings to riders traveling from the future 130th station all the way to the Loop, and also facilitate access to multiple CTA rail lines and bus routes. It will also reduce the number of transfers and provide a direct route to downtown, or even those who are traveling south to enjoy the historical museums, the fine arts, or even accessing the schools on the south side. It's a better system for everyone. RLE is an equitable investment that will result in strength and vitality for the communities in the RLE area, benefits that will exceed to the entire city. RLE will bring a 47% increase in newly accessible jobs within an hour commute of the RLE project area. We will have fully accessible and modern stations with enhanced lighting and security features to improve passenger comfort. New opportunities for Chicagoans. So as we all know, infrastructure is the great economic generator for most communities. Nationally, transit projects have up to a 5-to-1 economic return on investment. RLE will be able to pay dividends locally during construction, and once implemented, RLE is estimated to generate more than 25,000 jobs throughout Cook County in the coming years. This project provides the trajectory for an improved quality of life by increasing opportunities for economic stability within households by sustainable job creation and skill sets. RLE will be able to connect people and invest in neighborhoods. It will be one of the single biggest investments on the far South Side in decades, and it's a critical investment for CTA to expand its rapid transit network. Connection to the CTA rail network will improve mobility and accessibility for transit-dependent residents, as public transportation is the only option for many people to get to work, school, healthcare, shopping, and more. RLE's goal is to connect the far South Side residents to the same opportunities in Chicago as the rest of the city. RLE will foster unprecedented economic development in the project area, as new stations will serve as catalysts for neighborhood revitalization, spur the development of transit supportive communities, and also help reverse decades of disinvestment in local business districts. Next slide, please. So under the leadership and advocacy of our CTA President, Dorval Carter Jr., this project has advanced and proven its long-awaited commitment to provide greater access to the far South Side. Last year, it was announced that FTA had dedicated almost $2 billion in funding towards the RLE. And as we are completing all of the necessary administrative requirements to receive our full funding grant agreement by the end of this year. Over the next year, our advanced construction work of property demolition and utility relocations will take place. Last month, we announced the design build contractor for the main line and stations. So they will take about a year to design the project, and then major construction is slated to start in late 2025, and then revenue service by 2030. Also, in early 2026, we will announce the design bid build contractor for the yard and shop. We will continue our ongoing outreach engagement to educate the community about the project and ways to participate through workforce or disadvantaged business opportunities. By the year 2040, the RLE will carry approximately 40,000 trips per day. Next slide.
If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no.
So how does a project like RLE come to life, and what does it mean for development in the neighborhoods? To provide some insight into that question, I'll pass the mic to Ms. Sonali Tandon, our senior project consultant. Ms. Tandon started on this project in 2006 while in the planning department. And to bridge the gap as this project transitioned from planning to infrastructure, she was able to bring her institutional knowledge and historical background to the team. Sonali will highlight the economic opportunities around our transit supportive development plan.
Thank you, Tanisha, and good afternoon, everyone. So Tanisha talked about some of the recent and upcoming milestones, but years of planning work and community engagement has gone into advancing the project for funding and construction. Plans to extend the Red Line have been discussed since the Dan Rand branch was built in 1969. In 2004, 38,000 residents from the community passed a referendum in favor of the extension, following which CTA started studying the extension formally as part of alternatives analysis in 2006. The project development activities over the past few years have included preparing an environmental impact statement and preliminary engineering. We also completed a transit supportive development plan, which I'll be talking in more detail. This plan is intended to act as a guide for future development in the communities located in the project area. The planning effort was necessary to ensure that we fully leverage the benefits of this investment and also revitalize the far South Side communities as well as coordinate land use and zoning in advance of the construction. The plan is based on equitable TOD or ETOD principles. ETOD is development that enables all people, regardless of income, race, ethnicity, age, gender, or disability, to experience the benefits of dense, mixed-use, and pedestrian-oriented development near transit. CTA led this planning study in collaboration with City's Department of Planning and Development, which is the agency responsible for land use planning and decisions in Chicago. So overall, the goals of this plan were to create a community vision for redevelopment, formulate policy recommendations in collaboration with various city agencies, enhancing multimodal access to future stations, identifying potential funding sources and tools for implementation of the recommendations, encouraging private investment. And this effort has also supported our application for federal funding. The Transit Supportive Development, or TSD plan, helps demonstrate the city and CTA's commitment to support investment in the area, which will also fuel confidence for private sector investment. Next slide, please. TSD plan development has been a multi-year process that has included both technical analysis and significant agency coordination, as well as extensive public outreach throughout the process. We started the planning study in late 2020, and it was adopted by Plan Commission in 2023. It also received a Strategic Plan Award from the APA Illinois chapter. This process led to the vision for each of the 4 station areas that highlights the unique strengths, characteristics, and needs for each station area. These themes and visions contributed to land use and development strategies for each station. So as you can see on the map here, for 103rd Street Station, the vision is to create an active community hub with complementary land uses surrounding the station, such as retail, affordable housing, education, community services, basically land uses that will serve both residents and transit riders. Vision for 111th Street Station is a health and wellness district. This is based on the proximity to Roseland Community Medical District, which is to the east of the station area, as well as historic Pullman neighborhood and Pullman Industrial Corridor. And then there is Halsted Street to the west. The Michigan Station area, the vision is for a thriving commercial corridor with mixed-use shopping district in the heart of Roseland, renovated historic buildings, new infill development featuring commercial destinations, as well as increased access to housing and improved connection to all forms of transit. The 130th Station area, which is the terminal station, is next to Allgall Gardens Public Housing, which is also a historic district. The vision for this area is vibrant and connected community with access to jobs, healthy foods, amenities, open space, schools, and transit. Again, all these visions were developed based on the input that we received from the community and the extensive outreach that we did. I'll hand it back to Tanisha to introduce the next speaker.
Slide, please. So where does CTA find the money to build such a large project? To provide insight into that question, I will pass the mic to Ms. Claire McGuire, our Senior Project Manager of Controls. You heard me mention that this project is $5.3 billion. Yes, $5.3 billion, the largest in CTA's history. So our money guru will discuss the multiple funding sources and securing the funds to make this project possible. Claire?
Thanks, Tanisha. Could we go to the next slide, please? So this is a breakout of all of the funding sources that will help build the Red Line extension Generally, you can kind of think of these in three different buckets. One of them is the New Starts FFGA. FFGA stands for Full Funding Grant Agreement. This is the large grant in the Capital Investment Grant Program that we are going after to support the Red Line extension. The Red Purple Modernization got a different grant in the same program. So it's a similar type of process to go through, but essentially this is a lot of the work that Sonali and Tanisha were referring to that's been taking place over the last couple of years has supported this grant process. This is the last funding source that we need to lock in so we can move forward with the project, and we should be getting our full funding grant agreement before the end of the year, which is really exciting. The second bucket that I want to discuss is our local match. So we have funding sources that match against the New Starts FFGA and also some of our other federal grants, which I'll discuss in a moment. Those include CTA bonds, which are now a very large portion of the project, 1.6 billion. We also have two sources that are based on a transit TIF that was developed for the Red Line extension. Right now, they're listed on this chart as two different lines, but essentially it's $950 million of a transit TIF that's going to support the Red Line extension. And then the third local source is the state of Illinois PAYGO funds, which are just state capital funds. They're contributing $281 million to support the project at this time. So all of those local match are really important to demonstrate our local commitment and make sure that the various federal agencies have the required grant match that they need to be able to provide our funding. The third bucket is kind of our other federal grants. Two of them, the top two, are administered by CMAP. One of them, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality, or CMAQ. I know those words sound the same, but CMAP is the organization, CMAQ is the grant. We have $30 million that we'll be getting in 2026. And then we're also getting $100 million from CMAQ via the Carbon Reduction Program. We also have some smaller grants that are listed towards the bottom of the sheet here. $1.5 million from HUD to support economic development activities, which is really exciting. And then we also have a grant from FTA focused on a very particular kind of outreach, which is in the Areas of Persistent Poverty grant program. So many different sources coming together. They all have their various rules, which we'll be following on and reporting on for the life of the project. But, and the last one that we need to kind of lock down and get signed is the New Starts funds, the 1.9 billion. But overall, we've made tremendous progress over the last few years and making sure that we have all the funding sources that we need in order to move the project forward. With that, I will pass it back to Tanisha.
Claire, next slide, please. So what work has to be done before CTA breaks ground on RLE? To provide some insight into that question, I will pass the mic to Ms. Michelle Palmore. She's one of our RLE project managers who oversees the advanced work, which includes property demolition and utility relocation. She will also oversee the upcoming yard and shop work. Even though I mentioned that major construction starts in late 2025, we still have preliminary work that needs to be performed to accommodate the design build contractor. By CTA being proactive to get in front of this demo and utility, we will minimize risk and delays to the major work. Michelle, hand it off to you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually reporting live in the sun in the footprint of the Red Line Extension project. Now, as stated, in order to prepare the land for the future construction of the main line and the 4 stations, there's some preliminary activities that has to take place. CTA has already acquired properties for the Red Line Extension project. The demolition work for our first work order package is expected to begin fall of this year and will last through 2025. This work will occur south of 95th Street to roughly 118th Street. Now, as I mentioned, I'm actually in the field today. And if you give me a moment,
Michelle, we lost your audio. You went mute.
Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, give me just a moment. Videos. Are you all able to still see my camera?
No, we hear you, but we don't see your camera.
Okay, I apologize. Having technical difficulties. One moment, please. Video stop.
So shall we go to the next presenter and come back to the field?
Yes, that will work.
Okay.
Put you in.
So how do you find the right contractor to build these new stations and new tracks in the city of Chicago? To provide insight into that question, I will pass the mic to Mr. Mohammed Basadi, one of our general managers for RLE. Mr. Basadi will oversee the design build contractor. As many of you are aware, we awarded the largest single contract in CTA's history to Walsh Vinci Transit Community Partners to design and build this historic project. Mr. Basadi will highlight the time and effort that it took to procure this contract and finally select the design build contractor. Mo?
Thanks, Tanisha. Good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, please.
Put you in.
The procurement process for RLE mainline projects spanned over more than 2 years, involving multiple stages. In August 2022, CTA went out to the contractors and consultants and submitted a request for industry comments, or called RFIC. Throughout this process, we gathered industry feedback and their lessons learned from previous mega projects, which helped CTA to put together the requirements for the project. In October 2022, CTA started the request for qualification process, or RFQ. Throughout this process, we shortlisted 3 contractors based on their capabilities and qualifications. In June 2023, CTA issued the draft request for proposal. The contractor submitted comments and also attended one-on-one meetings with CTA to better understand the intent of the requirements. They also submitted innovative ideas through the alternate technical concept process, or ATC. In September 2023, CTA issued the request for proposal, which was the refined version of the draft RFP. In this formal solicitation process, the technical and financial requirements were finalized. Throughout this process, the contractors continued to submit comments, innovative ideas, and attended one-on-one meetings with CTA to make sure we're constantly in communication. In April this year, we received 2 proposals. Right after receipt of proposals, multiple review teams started to review those proposals, and in total, more than 70 individuals from various CTA departments and CTA consultants provided review comments. After compiling those comments into reports, first the technical review team presented their findings to the evaluation committee. Then the evaluation committee scores the proposals from a technical standpoint. None of the members of the technical review team or the evaluation committee had access to the price proposals at this point. After submission of the technical scores, the financial review team presented their findings to the evaluation committee. Then the evaluation committee scores the proposals from a financial standpoint. And at the end of this process, the evaluation committee and the VP of purchasing recommended that we needed to enter into negotiations with the contractors. In May and June of this year, we held a series of intense negotiations with the contractors. Throughout this process, the technical and financial requirements of the contract were further optimized. In July of this year, best and final offer version of the RFP or BAFO was issued to the contractors later in July, their BAFO proposals were received that included the final pricing and final technical commitments. Right after receipt of the BAFO proposals, the negotiation committee and the evaluation committee started to review the BAFO proposals. We followed a similar process as the last time to evaluate the proposals from a technical and financial point of view to figure out which contractor provides the best value to the CTA. And in August of this year, which was a huge milestone for us, we received the board approval in which the board formally endorsed the award of the RLE mainline project contract. Next slide, please. The board approved the award of a $2.9 billion contract to design and build the Red Line extension to Walsh-Windsea Transit Community Partners. We also refer to them to WVTCP from time to time. This portion of the program includes most components of the RLE project, with the exception of the yard and shop project that Tanisha mentioned is going to be awarded in 2026. And the advanced construction that's happening this year, and Michelle is reporting from field to report on that portion of the program. This contracting team includes Walsh Construction and Vinci as the managing general contractors. Also, Sysra and EXP will be leading the design process for this project. All design companies have extensive transit. All these companies, design and construction, have extensive transit and other infrastructure design and construction experience. We expect to issue the limited notice to proceed, or LNTP, in early October and NTP in early January, and we expect to begin construction in Q4 2025. With that, I pass the mic back to Tanisha.
Thanks, Mo. We're going to try Michelle again. Lindsay, can we spotlight Michelle?
Is that better?
Yes,
Okay.
we see
Sorry.
you. We see you. Now we see, flip the camera.
Okay. But thank you all. Sorry about that. So, as I mentioned, CTA has already acquired the properties that we will be demolishing. Right in front of me, you'll notice an empty lot. This is actually the lot where our very first demo took place. There was an emergency demolition that took place this past summer. Now, as I stated, while the properties will be demolished, there's also some advanced utility relocation work that has to occur. My team is continuing our efforts to coordinate weekly with various utility companies, such as Peoples Gas, Department of Water Management, various telecoms, and also ComEd. Now, I was trying to show you all an aerial line, but there's a lot of shrub and trees right here, but I think you'll get the picture. So ComEd will actually be relocating their existing lines, installing shorter poles, or relocating power on poles to the underground duct bank, along with other utility companies. Again, thank you all for tuning in with me today. I'll pass the mic back to Tanisha.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. And Lindsay, if you can bring the presentation back up. Thank you. Next slide. So how do we get the word out to the people in the community and CTA customers that this work is actually happening? To provide insight into that question, I will pass the mic to Ms. Tammy Chase, our Director of Communications. She will enlighten us on how they engage with the public and also our political liaison so that their constituents are informed and have a place to solicit feedback. Tammy?
Hi, everyone. I'm talking to you from 111th and Stewart, where we have our Red Line Extension Community Office. We're very excited to have this office in the deep in the project footprint. You can see it a little bit behind me here. And also, we just happen to be next to where we will build the new 111th Street station. So as I work with my colleague Latrice Phillips Brown to do outreach for the community, there's several things that we do and philosophies that we have. And the main one is community outreach is not a desk job. We are out in the community constantly with public meetings. We march in parades. We do holiday food drives. You name it. We go into schools. You name it. Somebody wants us to come out, or we think we need to reach a group of people. We go out and speak to them. We also do extensive outreach, of course, to the local elected officials, in particular the 3 aldermen whose wards include the Red Line Extension project. And I'll just touch on one more thing. My role as Director of Communications is to really help tell the story of RLE. What is it we're doing? Why are we doing it? And provide a support to all of the members of my team and people at CTA, just to make sure that they have all of the information they need as they talk to professional associations, contractors, we talk to the public, media, etc. And it's also very important to make sure that we have the accurate information to respond to and proactively provide information to the public. You know, what it is we're doing, what impacts is it going to have, what do they need to be keeping an eye out for, what are they concerned about, etc. Next slide, please. So part of the narrative, as you heard from Ms. Marshall and others on this program, is that this is more than just a large transit project for CTA. Certainly it is that. 5.3 billion, the largest CTA project in history, and the first extension to be built of a rail line since the Orange Line in 1993. But it's also a transit equity project, again, as we touched on before. And so part of that is getting out the word out to the community, supporting the CTA diversity team and outreach to small businesses that either are certified as disadvantaged business enterprises or wish to be and want to know how to do that. It is also about jobs, and also training and career opportunities. Then one of the top things we hear from this community is where are the jobs? How can I be a part of this project? How do I get trained? How can I become a pre-apprentice? So with every CTA construction contract, and including Red Line Extension, all of our construction contracts, construction management contracts, etc., have requirements, minimums for hiring from disadvantaged economic areas and so forth, as well as hiring disadvantaged business enterprises. The philosophy is pretty straightforward. We're not just going to build a project, we're going to build a project that builds the community. It creates careers and businesses that can support families and strengthen neighborhoods here on the far south side and across the city. And with that, I will pass the mic, back to Ms. Marshall. Thank you.
We think it goes back to Lindsay, right?
Oops, thank you.
Oh, Tammy, we have a slide here on how to stay connected with the project. Do you want to talk through that one?
Yes, I would love to talk to you about that. So lots and lots of ways to stay in touch with us. We are on Facebook and Instagram. Please follow us, and please encourage your friends, colleagues, neighbors to follow us as well. We're putting out a lot of good content, and especially as construction gets going, there's going to be a lot of interesting things to look at. You can also, of course, email us. You can visit us at our community office at 401 West 11th Street in Roseland. And you can, of course, email us as well. Thank you. With that, I will turn it back over to Lindsay.
All right. Thanks so much, RLE team, for that wealth of information. There was so much there that I definitely feel like I know a little bit more than I knew just about an hour ago. I have a couple questions that I'm going to put to you all just to get us kind of kicked off in this Q&A. But first, I want to encourage our participants. If you have a question, maybe you've been holding it, that's fine. Go ahead and drop that in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you to unmute yourself. Either way is totally fine, but we want to know what you want to know. And we want to get those questions answered. And there is no question that is too basic or too simple. I know this team is happy to answer anything that you might be thinking of. But I want to know a little bit more about this planning process. So the way you all presented, you present so well. It seems like it was such a smooth process, but I imagine there might have been some roadblocks along the way. So I'm curious, what were some of those roadblocks you might have come up against as you've gotten from, 2006, back when Sonali started conceptualizing this project, to now? So what were some of those roadblocks, and how did you overcome them?
I can answer that, Lindsay. And yeah, it's been a long process. And as you can imagine, there are a number of stakeholders and agencies and railroads and entities that we have to coordinate with and take their input into consideration as we go along. So yeah, there have been challenges along the way, but the one that I'll focus on today is something that Claire touched on, and Tanisha also mentioned the huge project cost. It's not unexpected, but securing funding for a mega project like this is always a challenge. We have been pursuing the Federal Capital Investment Grant Program, which only provides a portion of the project funding. We tried to maximize the federal CIG share by requesting 60%, which is the max allowable. But we got confirmation for only about 50% of the project cost at the time when we applied for entry into engineering, which is when you get locked into the federal share. So, but in order to get the federal CIG share, we also need the remaining funding figured out. And so we have pursued a number of funding sources to secure that. One of the key funding sources is transit tax increment financing, or transit TIF as we call it, which will provide up to $950 million. This required us to get city council approval. So transit TIF was also used to support a portion of the cost for the RPM phase 1. And in December 2022, the city council voted to approve a transit TIF designation for the RLE project. To get this approval, it required many aldermanic and community briefings to explain the project, provide need for funding, and what does it mean for different stakeholders. Another funding source that we pursued is CMAQ, or congestion mitigation and air quality funding. When we first applied, we only received 30 million, and we were expecting more. So we submitted an application again in the next cycle, made a case for the project to the CMAQ committee, and that helped us secure another 100 million through the carbon reduction program funding, which also goes through the same process. So just securing all the different pieces of funding has been the biggest challenge, but here we are. So I think that it has been a success in the end, securing all this funding. And we still need to get the full funding grant agreement, but we are well positioned for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonali. And I did see one question come in through the chat. So the question is, what was the number of jobs that RLE is projected to bring, or what number of jobs RLE is estimated to bring to the communities that they're going to be serving?
So if you remember I mentioned that last month we talked about awarding the design build contract of the largest in CTA's history. And during that course of that presentation, they actually talked about jobs. So I had to go pull that up. So the estimated construction jobs that will be created is 12,512. The estimated indirect jobs created will be 59,800. And then I estimated another 25,000 additional jobs become available with the access to transit community.
That's amazing.
I'm sure I got that correct and accurate.
That's incredible. Another question that I had was, we have obviously another huge capital project that's kind of in the getting closer towards the end, the red purple modernization. So kind of going from that one to RLE now, are there any similarities between those two capital projects? And if so, what are some of those?
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, I can get this one. Very good question. There are actually a lot of similarities between the two mega projects that we have right now. One of the managing contractors, general contractors, Walsh Construction, is working on both projects. Also, designers, EXP and Sistra are the same entities between the two projects. The team is proposing segmental box construction for the majority of the elevated alignment, RLE elevated alignment, which is similar approach to a portion of the RPM project alignment. In addition, the designer for stations between the two projects is the same entity, which means they will have similarities between the two projects. Both have like 4 stations, so there could be a lot of similarities there as well.
Thank you. And I'd like to hear from a little bit, maybe like a few of you can chime in on this one, and if you can chime in on the next one I have. But what has been the most exciting part of this project for you from, you know, whenever you started working on it up until now?
So I'll actually jump in on that one. As you heard, this project is more than just the typical transit construction. It will now open doors and reverse years of disinvestment to our far south side. We all know that transit is naturally sustainable. And so the benefits that we're providing is now addressing those local environmental justice issues that has plagued the community for years. I'm gonna get a t-shirt made, team. People will be thriving, not just surviving, right? Also to be part of an agency where we create accessible and economic change in Chicago within communities that look like me. So that motivates me and inspires me. Also, what separates most minorities is merely an opportunity. So now we're providing opportunities to a community that has gone without for so long. I feel honored to have the privilege to oversee this project that fulfills a promise to the community that will have lasting impacts long after I'm gone. And also to be part of a team that created a legacy that my family and loved ones will be proud of. This project provides generational wealth and stability. So what I'm doing is rewarding professionally and personally.
May I jump in on this question as well? When that question was asked, which was a great one, I thought of the recent parade our team marched in Altgeld Gardens at 130th Street. And it's a huge back to school parade. They do it every year, but it was the first time that RLE had participated in it. And we walked through the community with our banner and you know, shouting out, RLE is coming. And the reaction we got, it brought tears to some of our eyes. Just people were like, yes, finally, I can't wait. When does it start? You know, how do I find out about jobs? I think seeing that, you know, as a professional, just really moved me. Like I thought, you know, I'm happy and proud and honored to be a part of this project. Thank you.
Yeah, you both just gave me like goosebumps. That's it's incredible to, you know, sometimes you don't see the people on a regular basis that are actually impacted by the system and the work that we're doing. So it's really cool to hear about those people connections where you're actually seeing the people who are going to be greatly affected and lifted up because of it. Claire, did you want to add to that?
I actually got kicked out and then had to sign back in, so I'm afraid I didn't hear the question.
Oh, sure. No, it was just, what are you most excited about, or what has been most exciting about this project for you?
I think what Tanisha and Tammy offered are things that are really important to me too. It's just such a tremendous impact. I've worked on other construction projects for CTA that are also incredibly important with electric bus and accessibility projects that are existing systems and state of good repair. So I'm excited to kind of jump into this mega project. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is actually getting the last funding source. After so much work has gone on for so many years, kind of locking down this last funding source is the thing that I'm really excited to do.
That last piece of the pie. All right,
Lindsay,
great. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, this is Michelle. I'm still reporting from the field. Can I add to
Of course.
as well? For me, I've only been on this project 9 months, and I concur with everything that my colleagues has stated about this project. But one thing I will add to it is that for me, seeing my team work tirelessly day after day, putting the pieces together to make this project come to light is really gratifying to me. I work amongst a team of folks that's brilliant and they pose questions, they pose ideas, and it's just it's gratifying to see this all come to play for me, especially me being kind of new on the team. Like it's fulfilling every day watching me be a part of a team that's go-getters. So I'm excited about that.
That's amazing. That reminds me, or it makes me think about the thing that you all have reiterated as we've been kind of leading up to today, which is just the scope of this project and how many people and how many skill sets are involved. And I didn't give you a heads up for this, but do you know off the top of your head, anyone, Tanisha, probably you or maybe Tammy, how many like current CTA employees have been working on this project or are currently working on this project? Do you have a ballpark, or you're very precise, you might have an exact figure too? One moment. Okay, she's going to come back to us. All right, great. We'll wait for Tanisha to come back. I'm going to ask another question, and hopefully the rest of the team can jump in on this one. So we're hoping to break ground next year. What's kind of a milestone, or what are you looking forward to the most during the first year of this project? What would just delight you to see come to fruition?
I can add to that, Lindsay. I'm excited to see. I've never built anything. I've restored or maintain a station, but never built. So I'm excited to see what's underground when they start digging. What we find, what the contractors find out there. It's going to be quite interesting to me.
I
See,
can.
from my perspective,
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, when I started working on this project, it was just a concept, just drawings on paper, and seeing it become a reality is like really, really rewarding, and seeing the project move forward that has been long awaited in the community. So it'll be a huge, huge milestone.
I have been working on RPM since we were doing the advanced construction work starting in 2018 and 2019. And that project, as Lindsay alluded to, is going to be, substantially completed next year. So right now on the north side of Chicago, we have new red line stations not coming out of the ground, but you see walls, you see, of course, brand new tracks, you see, stairs for the stations, so forth, elevators, escalators, or the framework for those. And so we are so excited to see that work happening and telling the story that I know that we're going to see this on the South Side in a few years. And I cannot wait for people to be excited to see it coming, to take pictures. I think that's one of the things that I know I, as a comms lady, look forward to the most.
I'll kind of piggyback on that. You think about this project, it's been talked about for over 60 years, right? And the fact that now the community will be able to see it. So when you talk to people in the community, a lot of times I'll hear, yeah, I hope I'm alive to see it when it opens, and people not realizing that 2030 actually is not that far away from here, that it will happen. But just the joy that the community has, that it's finally coming, that we have committed to get this done. Can I go back to your last question, Lindsay?
Yes, please. I'm dying to know.
So you asked about CTA employees, but it's so much larger than just the CTA employees. I will say it's approximately 30 CTA, but we have consultants, we have contractors, we have sub-consultants. Like, we have a huge team that goes way beyond just our CTA staff. So even from this presentation, you see all the different components just to make this project possible. So we, and then outside of just the consultants and contractors, I think we're up to almost 20 contracts just alone for this project. So it's huge, and it's a lot of moving parts. And I don't even talk about the CTA, the different divisions within CTA. These are the people that are like directly reporting to RLE, but we coordinate with our workforce development. We coordinate with outreach. We coordinate with operations. So it's so many other CTA divisions that are also instrumental in making this possible.
Yeah, it's just so cool to see like all the groups. It touches everyone, right, in some way. So it's cool to hear the other groups also called out, because you might not think about, those other teams that might be contributing in different ways that may not be as apparent as, construction and planning.
And I apologize if I forgot a division. So team help out here.
All right, a couple other questions looks like came in the chat. So one question is, at what point will vendors have an opportunity to apply for a location, and what will determine which station?
I don't understand that question. When we talk about vendors and station locations, it's not specific like that.
Oh, okay. Looks like it came from Michael Carr. Michael, would you be able to unmute yourself and maybe clarify if you're still on the call?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It was regarding maybe an opportunity for, say, maybe a convenience store or maybe a coffee shop to open up at any of the stations. That's what it was referring to.
Okay. So Nali, I'm gonna pass that to you because that probably ties more into the TSD.
Yeah, so within the station footprint, we are not planning any retail, but there would be, as I mentioned in the TSD plan, like surrounding the station, there would be development opportunities. And as part of the TSD plan, the concepts that we have put forward includes like mixed use development, which includes retail at the ground floor and residential on the floors above. So it would be more market-based, what retail comes around those stations, not necessarily something that CTA would be deciding, or because there won't be retail within the station footprint.
Thanks, Sonali.
Thank you.
And the only other question I see is, will there be a future behind the scenes with RLE? And I think I can confidently say, yes, we would love to check in with the project again once some of these new milestones are reached, and once some of the next steps that the team talked about already are here, and they're working actively on it. So you'll definitely be hearing more from this group in the future. But I do want to make sure that we keep to time, so I'm going to cut the questions now. And I just want to take a few minutes to thank the team, first of all. Thank you so much to our team, to our RLE team for the presentation today and all the information that you shared. And more importantly, thank you for the work that you are doing on this project to help revitalize a part of our city that has been overlooked for a very long time. So all those things that you talked about affecting the people and impacting these neighborhoods, I think I can confidently say that all of CTA looks forward to that development and just the generational impact that this is going to have. So again, thank you so much for your work. Thank you for joining us here today. Thanks to our attendees for joining as well, and some of those questions that you asked. I do want to draw your attention to the chat. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. We would love to hear from you all about just to get feedback on today's session. We have been doing behind the scenes now for a couple months. We hope you've been able to tune into our other sessions that we've had so far. But we just want to hear from you. What do you want to hear? Who else do you want to hear from at CTA, or what other projects do you want to hear about? So please take 30 seconds, click on the link, fill it out for us. Thank you to our attendees as well. Thank you so much for joining us, being great participants. Also want to bring your attention to the upcoming events that the HR engagement team is hosting. Our next behind the scenes will be on October 17th. That's a Thursday, and there will be featuring the electric bus. So Claire talked a little bit about having involvement with them. I'm going to use that as our transition. That's going to be our next upcoming team. So if you want to hear more about that project and what's happened and what's in their future, please join us on October 17th. Look for that announcement through the email. We also have a Hispanic Heritage Game Night coming up on October 15th. And we also have Hispanic Heritage Month food demos happening at some of the various locations around the authority. So I hope you can join us for some of those events amongst your busy schedules. But one more time, thank you to everybody for joining us, for presenting, for attending, and we look forward to seeing you in October. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
all.
you.
Remember to follow us.
Thank you.